just raise.
Call to order the City of Lake Mills Plan Commission meeting of March 23, and may we proceed with roll call.
Mr. Holman?
Here.
Mr. Schumacher?
Here.
Mr. Coots?
Here.
Ms. Lazaris?
Here.
Mr. Magnuson?
Here.
Mr. Grady?
Here.
And Mr. Foster previously informed staff that he would be unavailable for this evening's meeting.
Yeah, he wrote us. All right, well, thank you. And item number 3 is correction and or approval of the minutes of February 23.
I'll move to accept as printed.
Is there a motion?
A second rather.
Mr. Coots will second.
Mr. Coots? All right, motion by Mr. Holman, second by Mr. Coots. Then we'll proceed with roll call vote on that.
Mr. Schumacher?
Abstain.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Mr. Schumacher.
He abstained.
He said abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Aye. Next, number 4, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, please hold your comments until the hearing. We do have 4 public hearings this evening. Item number 5 is a future land use amendment to change future land use for properties next to 1219 South Main Street and part of a parcel that belongs to Lakeside Lutheran. Item number 7 is a request by Lakeside Lutheran to rezone a portion of its property to remove the public and institutional overlay district designation from the R14 single-family residential designation to create 2 residential lots via certified survey map. Item number 9 is a request by Lake Mills Feed and Grain to rezone a portion of its parcel from R312 multifamily residential to PI planned industrial. And item number 11 is the conditional use request by Beverly Zulty for alternative vegetative cutting plan and for grading on a slope greater than 20% within 300 feet of the high water mark. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting your comments. Also fill in the sign-in sheet at the podium if you are present. For people online, please type your name and address in the chat feature. Are there public comments at this time from those attending in person? Okay. All right, I understand that we do have an interested party to comment online. Ms. Cicero, I understand that you have registered with the city clerk already to comment online, and we're ready for your comments.
Thank you so much. Patricia Cicero, 517 College Street. I'm the director of the Jefferson County Land and Water Conservation Department. This summer, as you have known, there have been a number of shoreline zoning violations in the city of Lake Mills that have resulted in property owners needing to get a permit after the fact and submit a conditional use permit application. The city's code specify that these applications must contain, among other things, a scale drawing of the lot and a plan for the proposed replanting. In terms of these requirements, the plans submitted have varied in the amount of details they have provided. I understand that it can be challenging for citizens to undertake these plans. The conditional use public hearing at the Plan Commission meetings is a way for the public to understand and be able to provide comment on these plans. It has been the case that some conditional use permits for shoreline changes have been granted with the condition that they submit another planting plan for review by city staff because the original submission was not adequate. In these cases, I assume the new plans will not come before the Plan Commission. This means that the public doesn't get the opportunity to provide comments regarding the plans. In practice, I would understand planting plans getting minor changes after approval by the Plan Commission. I would recommend in the future that the Plan Commission perhaps table any decisions for planting plans that need major changes so that the public has the ability to review them and provide comments to the Plan Commission at a future public meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cicero. Next is item number 5, public hearing request for future land use map amendment from City of
Pam?
Lake Mills
Harris?
Pam,
to change the future
Pam?
land use for the following properties.
Pam, there are a couple people online who'd like to speak. So if you check your chat, there's a Tesvia Springer and a Richard Schmidt.
Is this for public, this is for item number 4, questions and public comment, not related to public hearing?
They signed up for that, so I'm assuming that's what they
All
want.
right. All
It
right.
looks like Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Newton, who just put in, are here for the feed and grain, but I'm not sure
Yes, that would be what they're on for.
about Springer. I don't-
Sorry, wrong. No comment at this time. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. So then you want Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Newton to speak during the public hearing for that item?
All right. So the commentator is going to be on for a public hearing?
Yes.
All right,
I'm
that's
sure
fine.
that they want to.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, well, in that case, we are on to item number 5, public hearing, request for future land use map amendment from the City of Lake Mills to change the future land use for the following properties. Part of parcel 2460713-2313000, located adjacent to and south of 1219 South Main Street, from planned neighborhood to planned industrial. And part of parcel 2460713-1444000, located at 231 Woodland Beach Rd, from community institutional facilities to single-family residential. And again, this is for future land use map amendments. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak to the future land use map amendments? And if so, then please sign in at the podium and state your name and address for the record. Yes, are you here to comment on the future land use map amendment?
Okay. Thank you. Is it appropriate for me to speak now?
Yes.
Okay.
Not
an agenda item?
Only state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Bill Banbury, 144 Woodland Court. And it's any agenda item.
I'm sorry.
I can speak on any of the agenda items for tonight, correct?
We are right now we're on public hearing number 5, item number 5, and this has to do with the proposed land use map amendments.
On Lakeside property?
Well, coming up, we're going to be discussing a public hearing on a zoning amendment for
Zoning and
a
the,
parcel owned by Lakeside Lutheran. Right now, this has to do with the future land use map amendments for 2 parcels.
are you talking about the property or the area just north of 725 South Ferry Drive?
South
Ferry
South
Drive.
Ferry Drive. Yeah, if it's on the property owned by Lakeside Lutheran, then you probably are describing what I
Okay.
think you are.
It was part of the Lakeside property, and would like to speak with regard to the easement that exists on
Okay.
that property.
All right. Does
He's-
your comment
Pam?
pertain to changing the land use?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I speak on that?
All right. Go ahead.
Pam, can I
Yes.
make a comment?
What is it?
Bill, the property you're talking about is on the west side of Ferry Drive, correct? It used to be yeah. See, that's not up for any issue tonight.
Oh, I thought I read it in the agenda.
No, tonight it's actually lots being subdivided on the east side of the street off the main parcel.
But the agenda also does include the property on the west side. It's in your agenda with the drawing. I just looked at it 15 minutes ago. And it's not part of tonight's agenda?
We do not have that on the agenda for
No.
properties on the west side of Ferry Drive.
Excuse me, Ms. Lazaris, I would respectfully disagree with that. I was just looking through here. I don't know the exact one, but there is one of the Lakeside documents does refer to the west side of Ferry
Okay.
Drive.
Okay.
That is part of at least one of the documents.
Yes, it is.
All right.
And so I can speak to that now?
Of course.
Okay. I'm one of 300 property owners that have easements rights in the area under discussion on the west side of Lakeside, or west side of South Ferry. And I sent an email to the city manager, city attorney, and your board member that's on the city council. And basically there's a legal challenge being raised to the property owner of 725 who claims that easement is null and void. In the document that he sent to the residents, there are errors. They're going to be challenged. I don't know if the city wants to take action and become involved in litigation that is pending. That's your choice, but it will be challenged. And the easement rights under discussion affect 300 of your taxpayers, or 300 parcels in the tax body. I don't think it would be wise to proceed with any action on that until the legal questions relative to the owner of 725's comments and personal opinions is validated.
Okay. Is the city attorney in attendance?
No. We're in the process of dealing with 300 of your taxpayers. Draw a consensus of the action to be taken. Legal advice has been commenced. It is not finalized. We are not ready at this time to make a formal legal challenge, but
Pam, this is Dan Drescher. I am online.
All right, very well. Mr. Drescher, are you, can you address what is being discussed here?
Yeah, I'm generally aware of the circumstances. I was informed by Mr. Murphy, Tim Murphy. He's the owner of the property south of the easement that Mr. Banbury is discussing. He has acquired that property from Lakeside in an arm's length transaction. From what I understand, the city is not involved in that transaction whatsoever. My understanding with regard to the items that have been petitioned for tonight is that they don't address that easement whatsoever. I did just do a re-review, a cursory re-review of the documents that were attached, and I'm not sure, other than seeing the easement area as a parcel on a map, how this particular area is affected by the petitions that are in front of the Plan Commission tonight.
The applicant at 725 has issued a letter to all 300 property owners claiming that that easement is null and void and that the easement holders have no right to go on the property. It's his. His letter contains obvious errors. Those errors are going to be challenged in court.
And that would be the proper venue for such a challenge. The city has not been presented with an injunction regarding any action that's been proposed tonight. We're unaware of any litigation. And then aside from that, once again, Mr. Banbury, my contention would be that the action that is being proposed by Lakeside tonight does not affect and does not have any kind of dealings with the property that you're discussing. This is regarding a CSM of the main Lakeside property on the west side of on the east side of Ferry Drive, and parceling off 2 parcels from that property, the parent property, and does not address the west side of Ferry Drive whatsoever.
You may be correct. Your documentation does not give any indication of action or inaction on the easement rights on that property.
I agree with that statement. My contention would be that the issue you've described and that I have explained I'm generally aware of is a civil matter between the group of easement holder, the benefited party of that easement, and the owner of that easement, whether that be Lakeside or Mr. Murphy.
To continue further, that parcel isn't even in the city. We couldn't take any action on it if we wanted to.
That is accurate. It is a township parcel. It has never been annexed because it was always part of the Lakeside. Lakeside owned it essentially. So
what you're saying is the city will take no action and has no authority relative to that easement.
That's correct.
Other than, I mean, it does front our road, and there are aspects of authority that the city may exercise over it. But based on what I understand, the issue that you're addressing is the city has no stake in that game and will not take action on that issue.
Okay, well, I could not tell from your agenda if it would be or would not be. So I came down here to speak, and I'm not taking a position right now. It's more to put you on notice that there will be legal action taken with the property one way or another, and it may be wise for you to consider putting the application in abeyance until legal matters are settled.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just telling you what is in process, and it does deal with 300 property owners or parcels within the city. So it does affect city residents. It is your call. You are aware now that things are pending, and I expect something to be happening very rapidly, but dealing with 300 property owners is not something we can do in a week or two. So thank you much for your time. As long as you're aware, and I'm sorry if I misinterpreted anything, but I would say that the agenda is not at all clear on the issue that I have a concern for. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Wolf, do you have a map that shows the properties that are the subject of this public hearing?
Certainly, I can certainly share the county's map is not being very cooperative. So if you can see the highlighted component, that is the main Lakeside campus. That is the property in question for tonight's hearings, both on the land use and on the proposed rezoning. The property that's being requested unfortunately shows no information available. It is not located. There we go. Again, if there's a separate legal action pending, that is separate from what's tonight. This property with the legal action pending is not in the city limits. It is not connected to the main Lakeside campus, and the petitions from the Lakeside representatives is for actions related to their main campus.
Yeah. As I understood it, that the parcel being described just now is not what is before us this evening.
That's correct.
All right. All right. Is anyone else who would like to comment on the proposed future land use map amendments? All right. Hearing none, then we proceed with item number 6, discussion recommendation on request for future land use map amendment to change the future land use for the following properties, part of parcel 2460713231300 located adjacent to and south of 1219 South Main Street from planned neighborhood to planned industrial. And part of parcel 246071314444000 located at 231 Woodland Beach Road from community institutional facilities to single-family residential. Plan commissioners, we have before you Plan Commission Motion 2131, recommendation to City Council for future land use map amendment, part of parcel 2460713231300 and part of parcel 246071314444000. This motion does set forth the City of Lake Mills land use and zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes that the comprehensive plan has certain requirements for future land use map amendments. The review and recommendation by city staff, tonight's public hearing and Plan Commission review. This motion provides for a Plan Commission recommendation to the City Council to approve the requested future land use map amendments in accordance with the reasons set forth in the planner's memo. And also you found in your packets a proposed ordinance that comes before the City Council on this matter. And here displayed, you can see the parcels that are being talked about as far as the Lakeside Lutheran property is concerned. And then the other property again is the one just south of, let me glance down at the address, just south of 1219 South Main Street. Plan commissioners, do you have any comments or questions concerning what is being proposed?
I have two questions. My first question is what kind of notification has been given for the homeowners in the general area of this, other than this agenda for this meeting?
So there is a statutory requirement for notification on future land use amendments and also for the rezoning. So they were given a direct notification for the rezoning. The land use amendment is a different notification requirement by statute.
So what kind of what does that look like typically?
Typically a letter is sent to them that has a map and outlines or the public hearing notice of what's happening.
Okay.
And then it
So it would
directs
be
them.
odd if a neighbor 2 houses away had no idea that this was going on?
It would be very odd.
Okay, because that's what happened.
That you didn't receive one?
No, and I was talking to a neighbor. I said, have you heard about this agenda item? And she said she had no idea. 2 houses away on the corner of Milton and...
So if it's 2 houses north, it may be outside of the notification boundary. So again, I without knowing the property, and we can certainly check with the city clerk on that, but There is just a proximity. We don't notice within 500 feet. So if that's the issue, I can't speak to what happened here, but.
Okay. And the second question I have is, so if you can tell me the historical precedent that exists here, because it's from what I'm new. This is my second year in the town, but from what I gathered was that house just to the north, east. That is like only about 2 years old. Is that right? And
Yes.
that was it a similar situation where they asked for rezoning and they got it, and then they built. Is that what happened?
So they came in to subdivide that property off. The house, if you can see the kind of tannish roofed house, has been owned by Lakeside Lutheran for, I can't remember who associated with Lakeside Lutheran would live there, but someone, and then looking at Steve on that one.
It was a featurage.
Yes. Okay. So then they decided they wanted to sell off a piece of land between that and the existing home, which is, so now you're seeing this kind of under 4184, this property that was created. When they decided to come forward with this proposed land division, which would carve off the existing home and one more lot south of there, the property is currently zoned R14, or excuse me, R16. I'm working from memory. R16, and you think I would just pull up the memo with the institution public service overlay. So the uses are permitted by right. We don't need to rezone the properties. It's just much cleaner if we do rezone them out of the institution public service overlay. These single-family homes won't have institutional or public service uses, so there's no point in having that additional kind of zoning requirement. In addition to that, felt it was cleaner to clean up the future land use map for this area if they're carving off another property from what is there. So that is the kind of direction that we're going in tonight.
I see. And can I ask, and maybe this is, you're not the right person to ask, Dustin. I'm just curious, like, why do 2 units and then now do 2 more? And who's to say that these 4 units below or whatever aren't going to be done later on?
We've had this conversation with them in the past about a couple of years when they came in, they just want to do the one property, and now it's these next 2. And there's a couple of things that are precluding them from doing any more. Before I get into what you see is kind of platted there, if they wanted to carve off another property, they would have to do a subdivision plat. That's just a statutory requirement. You can do 3 lots by certified survey map within a finite amount of period without doing a subdivision plat itself. So anything beyond this would require a subdivision plat. Separate from that, all of this property, while platted somewhere long ago and shown, so bear with me because there's probably gonna be a little delay on your end. I have to get the map in a way so you can see this. Right. You have a dead-end street, serves a couple of houses, right? And then these homes were platted off long ago, right? Many years ago, when this subdivision or when these lots were platted originally. Somewhere in there, you can see that all of the track and such, some of these little woodlands, they're all on individual properties that are all owned by Lakeside Lutheran. As a condition of the certified survey map that's coming in, certified survey maps aren't reviewed at the Plan Commission level, they're reviewed at staff level. They meet requirements. One of the conditions is all of these properties, what we'll call the parent parcel, just needs to be consolidated. So all of these little lot lines will go away. And it will be one large, hopefully I'll show you. So this large blue boundary, at less the 2 home sites they want to carve off, would become one property and look like one property rather than a multitude of properties that are just kind of adjoined. So it is something we're cleaning up. It's just not something that comes before the Plan Commission.
I see. Now we after this vote.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's all I want to know.
Absolutely.
Oh, one more question. The notification is done by the city clerk, not by the
Yes.
property owner. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, city code sets the distance for how far away people have to be noticed, and Misty and staff do that work.
What is that? What is that distance? You know, Steve?
I think it's 100 feet. Might be
That's-
200.
I think it's
Okay.
100, but I'm working from memory, so you have
Yeah.
to forgive
Is
me.
that typical? Is that a typical distance city to city, or is that a little low?
It's statutory requirement. A couple cities have done more, but what happens is take this parcel, for instance. You're doing a notification. You're notifying 400 people. Now you start to extend that further and further. You're starting to notify 700, 800 people. And so it becomes a very expensive proposition for the city. So we try and stick to the statutory requirements, because once you move to a new one, then it's an expected standard that the city has to meet all the time.
Sure.
So we've had this conversation on multiple occasions, and we've opted to stick with the statutory requirement.
I see. So, okay. So what I'm hearing you say, just to reframe, is this today's vote didn't have to come. They is that right? Like they could have subdivided this on their own if they wanted to, and didn't need a planning commission vote. But is deemed important. Is that right?
No.
I heard you say no.
Well,
okay.
If I can backtrack, Steve, on this one, let me start. It's a 200-foot notice, so that's what's spelled out in the code.
Okay.
As for this, the land use map calls for this area to be community service, institutional, etc. That doesn't necessarily preclude residential from happening in that land use. But we felt it's cleaner to tidy up the land use map because of what they're proposing to do here. The property is zoned R16. I think I would just pull up. Sure, that's the other one. R14. Sorry, it's a single family. They're both single family residential districts. So they're zoned R14. And then they have, this map is showing you land use, not zoning. I want to make that clear, what you're seeing right now with this blue. The zoning map shows yellow with a blue outline. The blue outline is an overlay zoning district, which is institution public service overlay, right? So it allows additional uses like churches and schools within it, right? So they didn't necessarily need to come to the city to have it rezoned to carve it off. Staff instructed them in reviewing the certified survey map that we felt this is the best, cleanest procedure to make it clear to neighbors what's happening out there and long-term for the site. So we don't have a couple of small properties out there, which will have single-family residences on them, but technically, according to zoning, could have a church or a school or something in it, right? So that's why we wanted these amendments made.
I see. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Certainly.
All right. That was a good discussion. Thank you. Now we're still on item number 6, considering this motion before the Plan Commission, and keep in mind this is for both partial properties that are being considered for future land use map amendment. Are there any other questions or comments? For these future land use map amendments in this motion, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion concerning the motion 2131?
Amendment 2131.
All right.
Mr. Coots will
And moved
second.
by Mr. Walker. Is there a second?
Mr. Coots will second.
All right, and seconded by Mr. Coots. Any further discussion? All right, in that case, I'll proceed with roll call vote.
Before I proceed, I missed who the original motion was from.
Mr. Schumacher.
Thank you.
All
Mr.
right.
Coots,
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson. Is Mr. Magnuson still there?
He is online.
Mr. Magnuson?
Can he
It
type
appears
his
the
message
connection
in?
was lost.
Yeah, he lost.
Mr. Grady?
Abstain.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher? I'm having a hard time hearing Mr. Schumacher, but I believe I heard I in the background. Can somebody please confirm?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. Motion passed 4-0.
All right. The next item, item number 7, public hearing. And now this is the request for a zoning amendment from Lakeside Lutheran to change the zoning of a portion of the property from single-family residential, public and institutional overlay district to just the R14, single-family residential. In other words, taking the overlay district, removing that. Is there anyone, I guess, Mr. Wolf, I see you have the property highlighted here. Is there, Mr. Wolf, would you like to go over? You and your memo, you have certain findings and conditions. Could you go over what you have, your recommendation?
Certainly. So this screen we're just showing from the memo, the area in question to be rezoned to remove the institution public service overlay. On the right, you can see an excerpt from the proposed certified survey map for that area. So the findings that we have is, does the proposed map amendment further the purposes of zoning code as outlined in specific sections? Again, this is an institution public service overlay district that we're removing. We are not changing the underlying district. So the proposed uses of the rezone lands and future certified survey map would be in keeping with the lands adjacent to it. And it does not impact the ability for Lakeside Lutheran to keep operating their school and campus grounds. Will the proposed map amendment maintain the desired consistency of land uses and intensities in the area? Again, yes, it is meeting all the same requirements as adjacent single-family homes. They will be used for single-family only. So it certainly is in keeping with post-war residential neighborhoods of the area. What's the trend of development in the area? And have taken place since the property was placed in the present zoning classification. Well, there really hasn't been a trend in this area for rezonings. I mean, this is a very built-out area. It truly was surprising that Lakeside Lutheran was proposing to carve off lots. So they're the only ones who really can in that area because they have so much acreage. So, as we said, there was a CSM about 3 years ago. for the property to the north of what's in question tonight. But other than that, other than some teardowns along the lake, there really hasn't been any trend of development for this area. And then, are the designations of the official zoning map be brought in conformity with the comprehensive plan? Well, again, we just had the comprehensive plan map amendment to make it all single family rather than institution, public service, or lake for the two properties in question. Again, to clean that up and to clarify. So again, our recommendation is to approve the rezoning based on the findings of fact and a couple of conditions. That the amendment for the future land use map is approved and adopted, and then the certified survey map is created. So the zoning would not go in place until the map until these lots have been created.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Sure.
We are in public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on this rezoning request? Is anyone who has a comment about this request for rezoning this particular piece? Would anyone like to comment on the proposed rezoning? On that, all right, hearing none, then I close the public hearing. And we go on with item number 8, discussion and recommendation on zoning amendment request from Lakeside Lutheran to change the zoning of a portion of the property from single-family residential with a public and institutional overlay to just single-family residential R14 for the creation of 2 lots via certified survey map. Plan commissioners, you do have a prepared motion 2132, recommendation to City Council for zoning amendment, part of parcel 246071314444000 by Lakeside Lutheran High School. This motion does set forth the city's land use and zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes. The requirements for zoning amendment. The requested amendment to remove the public and institutional overlay from the R14 single-family residential district for the subject lots. The city's review, tonight's public hearing, and plan commission review. This motion provides for a plan commission recommendation to the city council to approve zoning map amendment, removing the public and institutional overlay from the R14 single-family residential designation of subject lots, subject to findings and conditions set forth in the planner's memo, which Mr. Wolf has gone over. The motion also finds that procedural provisions for amendment set forth in Chapter 660 zoning regulations will have been met. Plan commissioners, do you have any comments or questions concerning this motion and the proposed lifting of the overlay that is being proposed here?
It looks to me like it's a lot of housekeeping like we've done in other areas. I think this seems to be in order.
Are there any other comments or questions concerning the proposed motion? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as printed.
Mr. Coots will second the motion.
Is there a second?
Mr. Coots will second.
A second by Mr. Coots. Any discussion? Hearing none, then we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson. I'm going to assume that he's still gone. Mr. Grady,
Abstain.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher, Mr. Coots,
I'm getting there. Aye.
motion passed 4-0.
All right, thank you. Our next item number 9, public hearing, request for a zoning amendment from Lake Mills Feed and Grain Incorporated to change the zoning of a portion of parcel 2460713231300 from multifamily R312 to planned industrial. This piece of a parcel is located adjacent and south of 1219 South Main Street and would be merged via certified survey map with 1219 South Main Street. Mr. Wolf, I see you have shown the property in question. Would you go over your recommendations, which contain, you have some findings and conditions in that, if you would go over your recommendations.
Certainly. So as you can see from the aerial here, there is a 20-foot wide by some odd 1,000 feet long piece of land that has been attached to the VitaPlus site. It only contains some transformers that serve their operations. These lands are being included on their primary site. The issue is they used to belong to the lands to the south, which was one of the Topol family members' site, but wasn't zoned appropriately for this. We don't allow mixed zonings or split zoning on properties by ordinance. So this is, I'll say, to use Mr. Holman's words, a housekeeping item to make sure that this property has singular zoning of general industrial on the entire thing. So the findings here, as you can see, that the does the map amendment further the purposes of the zoning code as outlined? Yes, again, it cleans up an issue that we don't allow, which is split zoning, and that the use of that sliver of parcel will then be conforming and consistent with the lands to the north of it. Will the amendment to the map maintain the desired consistency of land uses? Yes, there's nothing on this property. It can't be used for anything additional other than what's been used to the north. It's just not wide enough for anything else. And like I said, it already has the pre-existing transformers on them. Trend of development in this area. There's been a mix of things that have happened in this area because of all the reconstruction that's occurred. So we have new multifamily development that's been going on there. We've had some historic or kind of aging industrial or commercial-esque properties that are redeveloping. So this is certainly in keeping with the trend of the development of the area is investment of the area and to clean up property lines. And then will the map be brought in conformity with the comprehensive plan? Well, again, previous item, you made that change, which took that sliver from planned neighborhood, which is what the agricultural property to the south is got a future land use for, and made it industrial to comply with the VitaPlus primary property. We're recommending approval based on the finding of facts, and then conditioned upon, again, the adoption of the future land use map amendment and approval of retracement certified survey map to create one parcel.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. That's an important step. Is the combining of the parcels into one legal description through a certified survey map. It's very important. Okay. The public hearing is open on this matter. Does anyone wish to speak to this proposed rezoning, to attach, as it were, this property to Lake Mills Feed and Grain? Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this proposed rezoning? Are there any comments regarding this proposal?
Pam, remember there are two people online who may want to speak.
Is there anyone online who wishes to speak?
Mr. Schmidt, you're more than welcome.
Is anyone attending online who wishes to speak to this proposed rezoning?
I'm Tony Newton. I'm the manager of the facility, and I'm here to help answer any questions if there are any.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak, attending online or in person, as to this proposed rezoning?
Oh, hi. This is Rick Schmidt. I just had a really hard time getting unmuted, but I managed to find the right button. Yeah, there's not much I can say in addition to what's been said, and I think I'll stop when I'm ahead. We'll answer any questions. It's a 26-foot wide strip that was acquired from the property to the south, so it puts the industrial use really with the industrial property. It's a long strip, but we are in the process of getting the CSM approved as well, so this is part of the entire process. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'm an attorney representing Lake Mills Feed and Grain Inc.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Does anyone else wish to speak to this proposed rezoning? Are there any further comments about this proposed? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And then we go on to item number 10, discussion and recommendation on zoning request from Lake Mills Feed and Grain Incorporated to change the zoning of a portion of a parcel of land identified as parcel 2460713231300 from multifamily residential R312 to planned industrial PI located immediately adjacent and to the south of 1219 South Main Street to be merged via certified survey map with 1219 South Main Street. Plan Commissioners, you do have prepared motion 2133, recommendation to City Council for a zoning amendment, part of parcel 2460713231300 by Lake Mills Feed and Grain Incorporated. This motion does set forth the city's land use and zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes, that the zoning regulations have specific requirements for zoning classification amendment. The zoning amendment being requested from R312 multifamily residential to PI planned industrial. The city's review, tonight's public hearing, and Plan Commission review. This motion does provide for Plan Commission recommendation to the City Council to approve the requested rezoning from R312 multifamily residential to PI planned industrial for the subject piece of property. Subject to the findings and conditions contained in the planner's memo, which Mr. Wolf has described. This motion also finds that rezoning procedures set forth in the zoning regulations will have been met. Plan Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions on this, what is being proposed through this motion? Any questions of the representatives of Lake Mills Feed and Grain who are attending online? Does anyone wish to make a motion concerning motion 2133?
This is Mr. Grady. I'll motion to approve 2133.
Mr. Grady has moved to approve motion 2133. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Holman.
Mr. Holman has seconded. All right. Any further discussion? In that case, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
I'm just looking to see if Mr. Magnuson is back.
All right.
I don't see him.
Mr. Magnuson, can you hear us?
He doesn't appear to be online anymore.
I was gonna say, I don't think I see him. Okay, Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Mr. Holman,
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher? Did Mr. Schumacher say aye?
Yes, aye.
He did.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Our next item is item 11, public hearing, conditional use request from Beverly Zulty for an alternative vegetative cutting plan and grading excavation on a slope greater than 20% and 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark to remove and replace lakeshore vegetation at 721 Fremont Street, identified by parcel number 246-0713-1143-001. Mr. Wolf, would you give an overview of this request and your recommendations?
Certainly. So this property was brought to the attention of the city in August of last year that shoreline work was occurring without proper approvals, permits. So in essence, that they had been removing existing vegetation to replant with new vegetation without and exceeding the amount allowed by code without coming to this body or the council for subsequent approval. As you can see here, this was the image of the kind of before and the after before planting had occurred. The city obviously reached out to the property owners, and they had begun putting together had completed planting and had to provide planting plans to the city. Just trying to click to the some of the graphics. So one of the goals here obviously is to have a variety of planting types from the water's edge up through the slopes to the upland area. The zoning administrator is also a landscape architect. Brian Krantz has been working with the property owners while kind of employed a grid system, if you will, to complete plantings in this area. And it's our understanding that they have completed the plantings, though they have not been confirmed by by city staff. Give me 1 second here. This image is showing you the 30 feet where they have vision and access rights to them, where if you can see on the left where the stairwell is located. On the right edge is the kind of repair and restoration area, which is about 20 feet. Again, they have provided a planting plan and have completed plantings in all of this area that meets the satisfaction of the zoning administrator, landscape architect. There's a couple minor changes he would like to see included with that plan. As a part of an approval, there is a recommendation for approval that landscape fabric be placed on disturbed soil, that the applicant work with the city staff to add some woody shrubs and or trees to the upland areas outside the vision and access corridor. that should be sufficient to meet some of the aesthetic requirements and visibility requirements to and from the water, in the opinion of zoning administrator. The condition of approval for annual reviews for 2 years, which has been a recent requirement on some previous similar projects. The Cedars had this requirement, as did the Compier site. And then again, some issues on the grading, kind of excavating side of this, with which were the same requirements placed on those other properties and previous conditional uses for minimizing the amount of disruption, erosion control measures being followed, temporary ground cover being used, permanent cover where appropriate being utilized, any requirements, conditions by the city engineer, because these slopes are sort of steep. If there are specific questions, we can certainly answer them. But again, recommending approval with some modest conditions, because the work has been done out there. The understanding is they didn't know they needed all these permits, and they are trying to get them obviously after the fact.
Mhm. All right, thank you, Mr. Wolf. The public hearing is open concerning this request. Would anyone would like to comment on this request? And also, again, write your name and address and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I did comment in the chat with my address. Would you like me to state it again verbally?
Who is the party online?
Sorry, this is Marissa Ullman. I'm the Water Resource Management Specialist for Jefferson County.
All right, thank you. Yeah, go ahead then.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to comment on this project specifically, to offer more information about best practices in shoreline restoration, to ensure that Rock Lake is adequately protected from further and future disturbances. The few things that I wanted to highlight in this plan that stood out to me is that the code requirements listed for grading and excavation on slopes in excess of 20% are listed in here, but it doesn't really discuss the nature or extent of the grading that took place in this plan, and we felt that a description of those activities should be included in the plan because of the implications on erosion. In terms of the plan, the application for alternative cutting plans requires that the applicant submit a scale drawing of the lot that includes structures, path, scale within the shoreline buffer and the vision and access corridor. And the grade of the planting that was provided didn't include a scale, so it wasn't really clear whether that was going to cover the vision and access corridor or just the restoration there. So we did have a couple of questions about the seed mix as well, just because many of the plants that were listed within the mix require especially wet soils or inundated environments, and we had some concerns about whether or not they'd be able to establish on a slope where there wasn't significant moisture, and would recommend that perhaps those species be replaced with grasses and other native things of that nature that would do well in those conditions instead of herbivores. I guess that's all that I wanted to mention about this project.
All right, thank you. All right, the public hearing is still open. We have some people attending in person who wish to speak, and then to please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm John Tony, representing Rockland. I'm sorry? I can't hear you at all.
Press the green button.
Got it. Thank you. John Thodey, representing Rock Lake Improvement Association. Can you please pull up the submitted drawing? Which is the grid? I don't know who's doing that. So I just want to comment on this stuff that gets submitted to the city. I mean, your ordinance says that for these conditional use permits, the commission shall require the lot owner to submit a scale drawing including location of parking, existing structures, paths, stair locations, shoreline buffer, vision access corridor, the gradient of the land, the existing vegetation, the proposed cutting, and the proposed planting. This is the stuff that gets submitted all the time. Can anyone in this commission or anyone from the city tell me where the high water mark is? Or the property line? Or the stairs? Or the top of slope? Or where the 20% gradient is? This is what gets submitted all the time and gets put in front of this plan commission. I want to argue that the plan commission shouldn't be having action on items like this. This is not an actionable submission. This submission could be for discussion in front of the plan commission. Part of the requirements of this are so that the public can see what's going on and so that the public has a right to comment, not just the plan commission and the city staff. By taking action on documents such as this and putting it off to the city staff takes the public out of the equation. This is a city ordinance, and I wish that the city and the plan commission would start enforcing this ordinance with regard to these submittals. I don't want to vilify Ms. Zulty. This is basically representative of something like the Cedar submitted, which action was taken on, but I would again argue that was not an actionable submittal. And so the approval of that and the progress of that is now taken out of the public venue. And so that's disturbing to us at the Rock Lake Improvement Association that the ordinances aren't being followed. I've submitted many things to many cities and many states over the past, and normally it doesn't get to a level where it's actually on the agenda for approval if it's not an appropriate document. It can get on the agenda for discussion, where I might want to come in front of a body and discuss something and get their input, but I wouldn't be asking for approval unless the requirements for action are fulfilled with the submittal. So that's just a general comment about the type of documentation that seems to keep coming into the city in the Plan Commission for approval. With regard to the plan specifically, we're just concerned about the seeding on the slopes. Maybe a lot of the plants have caught already, and if they did catch, that's good. But seeds don't weigh anything. I mean, they're as light as dust. And if you get a rain like this, seeds will just float on top of the water and they'll just all end up down at the bottom of a slope like this. So we'd like to encourage, and I guess some of this work has already been started, we'd like to encourage the city to encourage their staff to get out there quickly to see if things do take this spring. So if they did take this spring, you know, great, especially if they were planted last fall. But to wait a year to see if things took after this action, it could be the case that a lot of these seeds are already at the bottom of the slope, and therefore not getting in the way they should be here or proposed to be. And then lastly, a similar comment to what the county representative had, which is the 20 feet that's to the east or else south, I'm not sure the right-hand side of this document, which is not in the viewing access corridor, we'd like to recommend that does get replanted with woody vegetation, which basically means bushes. Part of the woody vegetation helps establish a steep slope, which these plants don't do year-round because they die down in winter. I mean, these are all plants that grow in the summer and die down in winter. So the woody plants, again, meaning bushes, establish a greater root structure, which helps keep the slope in place. And one of the other things from the view access corridor was to block the view of the structure from the lake. And so, of course, that would be plantings that are 8 or 10 or that mature at 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 feet tall, something like that, which these plants do not. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zulty. Mr. Wolf, it's my understanding that in your recommendations that there are things that Mr. Zulty brought up that you are covering in your conditions of approval. For as an example, the adding the woody plantings. Is that right?
That is correct. In the upland and the riparian restoration area, but specifically the upland, the recommendation is to work with the city staff to amend the plan to add woody shrubs and or trees. The vision access corridor obviously does not have that requirement, but the other areas do. So there are, in the memo, is a series of alternative woody plants that can be utilized. See if I can find them quickly. Alder, serviceberry, hornbeam, dogwoods, hawthorn, willow, and again, there are others.
Mm-hmm.
I turned it off.
Okay, no problem.
It's insisted on going.
100%
Okay. All right. Did you have anything further you wanted to say about that, Mr. Wolf?
I'm sorry, say it again, Ms. Lazaris.
Was there anything more you wanted to say about that?
About the plantings, again,
Yeah.
it's that they work with Brian Carranza, who's the landscape architect, to ensure that that they're meeting the letter of the code. The concern about that we don't look at it for years is not exactly accurate. The staff will go out and monitor the planting as it's occurring, and then generally we'll look in the fall and then the following year to ensure that if there's amendments or replacement plantings that need to occur. And again, the use of a variety of matting or fabrics to minimize erosion is required as a condition.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. All right, we're still in public hearing. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this request for conditional use?
I guess I just would like to clarify if the seeding already took place, which part of the parcel that took place on then? Was it only in that restoration area or was it all 50 feet of the disturbed shoreline?
The entire shoreline has been planted.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just get clarification who was just speaking?
I'm sorry, that was Marissa Ullman again.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Zulty, you wish to speak. Mrs. Zulty is speaking now.
Okay. Let me sequence for you what did transpire at 721 Fremont. In August, I had somebody come in and take out the weeds and some of the invasive growths. My experience over the past 18 years has been that these growth's come back very, very rapidly, including some bushes and some trees that obscure my vision from the house of the lake when they get too high. So I routinely have cut them back annually. As soon as we cleared the land in August, I immediately went out and got seed blankets, which were in the trunk of my car when the city came by to say that somebody had complained about the clearance of my clearing the land. We installed the seed blankets the next day on the south side of the land in question. Right after that, I hired a company who specializes in shore restoration to come in, and what they did was put down a mixture of wheatgrass and wildflower seeds, and then they covered it with a mesh of some sort, landscape cover. That both sides of the land in question started sprouting grass immediately. I then talked with someone about what other planting should be done. It was recommended or suggested that I not put in any more bushes or trees or anything, but rather some plantings that would be ecologically beneficial to the land as well as to beautify the land. And that is the grid that I submitted to the city when I was asking for your approval. In response to whether or not those plants that I put in on the south side of the incline, yes, many of them are already poking their little heads through the soil and through the seed blanket that was there. So I did what I could to prevent any erosion. I think it's important that I tell you that in addition to living on the lake for 18 years, I have children and grandchildren and a new grandchild who live in Lake Mills. So I certainly did not want to do anything to harm the land or the lake. I love it. My family loves it. And I will do anything that I need to preserve the waterfront in front of my house. Now, in terms of putting a more complicated plan before the city, I'm 84 years old. For me to get the information that was just described would take research that I was under the circumstances not. First of all, I didn't know I should be doing that or that it would be recommended that I do that. But second of all, it was important to me to mitigate whatever damage was possible erosion-wise before some rains came. Therefore, I will reiterate, I did the seed blankets and the other erosion preventatives that I could under the circumstances. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs.
Do you have any
Zulty.
further questions?
We may inquire of you later if the plan commissioners have questions, but I guess no one does at this time.
I can't hear a word she's saying.
All right, the public hearing is still open.
I can't hear a word she's saying.
Is there anyone online or in person who wishes to speak to this proposal? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this conditional use request? Are there further comments concerning this conditional use request? All right, hearing none, we close the public hearing. We go to item number 12. We go to item number 12, discussion and recommendation on conditional use request from Beverly Zulty for alternative vegetative cutting plan and grading excavation on the slope greater than 20% within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark to remove and replace lakeshore vegetation at 721 Fremont Street, identified by parcel number 246071311430001. Plan Commissioners, you have before you motion 2134 Beverly Zulty, 721 Fremont Street, Lake Mills, conditional use request for alternative shoreline vegetation cutting plan and conditional use for grading on a slope greater than 20% within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark. This motion does set forth the city's land use and zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes, the city's standards in section 66034 for shoreline preservation and vision and access corridor, the city's permitting requirements for grading within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark under 66035, the conditional use requested under section 66034B4 for alternative vegetative cutting plan for shoreline vegetation, replanting, and remediation, and to allow for grading of a slope greater than 20% within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark. The city review of the conditional use application and Plan Commission review. This motion does provide for Plan Commission recommendation to the City Council to approve the conditional use request subject to recommendations and conditions contained in the planner's memo, which Mr. Wolf has described, and compliance with all applicable state law, administrative code, and local ordinances. Plan Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on this conditional use that is being proposed? Mrs. Zulty is here if you wish to ask her any questions. Does anyone want to make a motion concerning motion 2134?
A motion, Mr. Grady, to approve.
All right, Mr. Grady has moved to approve motion 2134. Is there a second?
Mr. Coots will second.
And seconded by Mr. Coots. Any further discussion? In that case, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Just verifying that Mr. Magnuson didn't make his way back. I don't see him.
He has not.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Aye, thank you. Our next item is item 13, discussion recommendation on final plat Brookstone Phase 7. Hi, thank you, Mr. Doty. Hi, and Mr. Wolf, would you give an overview of this final plat then? And your recommendation.
Certainly. So the preliminary plat for this area was from 2018, and certain development has already occurred out in Brookstone by the city. Steve can give you some understanding how many lots have been constructed on at this point, but they've seen a steady stream of new homes. It is time to final plat the next phase of this development, as you can see on the screen. The lots are identically sized to everything around it. The roadways will be extended, of course, and utilities extended. All the land is zoned R1-4, so single family residence district. There are very few conditions that we're requiring here because it's a city-led project. We have the utmost confidence that the developer will do what's in the best interest of the community. So the city engineer and public works staff will need to determine if any or all easements are properly illustrated, and if Jefferson County has any technical requirements. But hopefully this is the second of a number of future final plats to complete the development of the Brookstone area.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Plan Commissioners, you have the prepared motion 2135, final plat approval, Brookstone Meadows Phase 7 subdivision. This motion does set forth the city's subdivision authority under Wisconsin state statutes. The final plat submission of Phase 7 Brookstone Meadows, the city's review, the December 4, 2018 council approval of the preliminary plat of Brookstone Meadows subdivision phases 6 through 10 and Plan Commission review. This motion does provide for Plan Commission recommendation to the City Council to approve the final plat of Phase 7 Brookstone Meadows subject to 1. Submission of engineering plans, 2. Submission of engineer's cost estimate, 3. Complete and finalized bidding documents and agreements, 4. Requirements of the subdivision ordinance and the planner's memo that the subdivision would meet, the plat would meet those. 5. Compliance with applicable state law, administrative code, and local ordinances. This motion also provides that if outside agency review is not completed or all supporting documents not submitted in final form within 120 days, as required by the city, the approvals recommended herein shall be null and void. Are there any questions, comments of city staff on this final plat? Oh, I have one. Mr. Wolf or Mr. Wilkie, I don't recall the length of time that is provided in our code between the approval of a preliminary plat and the time that a final plat would be accepted. Is that, do you recall?
Not off the top of my head. It's spelled out in the statutes.
All right. Now, for some reason, the 3 years sticks in my mind, in which case this is fine. But this is, the preliminary was for phases 6 through 10. So that would be like a footnote for the future to make sure that the subsequent submittals are within the time frame. If it's 3 years, then this is fine.
It's actually 10 years. And
Is it 10 years?
yeah, I think it's 10 years now. And
Well, they should be all right then.
yeah, and we just did the 6 through 10 about a year and a half ago, 2 years. And so yeah, we're moving along faster than I thought.
Well, 2.5 years. The time went quickly.
Yeah, I was amazed. I mean, they basically had 21 lots in phase 6, and we thought they would go a lot longer. So they were back interested in having us construct another 18 lots. I was amazed.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
Lots.
I like
phases.
your own.
There are additional phases, obviously, but I think that they'll hit the timeline requirement. Phases. Actually, we combined phases 6 and 7, so it's not really going to be a full 10 phases anymore. It'll be 8. So phase 8 will encompass essentially the same type of plat for the next one, which will be extending, I think it's Ridgeview Drive south. And then the final phase will take Autumn Crest south, and then eventually American Way will come out to Harvey Road in that last phase. So I'm imagining if they stay on schedule, that probably by 27, 8 to 9 will be completed, and this subdivision will be built out.
All right, very well.
And they're essentially the same thing. They're all single family, about the same size lots. There is one more cul-de-sac on the one street, which is Ridgeview. Autumn Crest will probably extend. We'll just dead end at American Way. There's not much different in phases 8 through 9, but there is a individual online, Ms. Springer. She had a question about that, so if I didn't answer it, do you want to let her speak?
Ms. Springer, this isn't a public hearing. Do you have a brief question or remark?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I am a resident of Brookstone community, and I just, this is not with regards to the proposal that is being presented here tonight. Will there be any future developments past phase 10 or 8, 9, 10, whatever, for Brookstone community, or will it finish after the finalized proposal 10?
Mr. Wilkie, did you want to address that question?
Yes, I will. The original submittal was done in 1994, Pam, or 96. And
before my time.
Yeah, it had the entire site built out pretty much the way we have it developed here. So they even had there's 11 acres to the south of Wallace Park that's still part of that. And then there's 5 acres at the entrance to Brookstone there on the west side of that street. That's still a part of that development. After that, that development will be fully built out.
All right, very well.
That doesn't mean that, you know, if they look to develop further east or to the south, I don't know that it would be Brookstone. Mr. Giusti, who owned Brookstone when I got here, had originally been Mark Newman. They owned this site, was originally an island felt farm, and this development encompassed that whole agricultural area. But you know, someone could come in and propose to develop further to the south or to the east. And we'd certainly consider it. I mean, the infrastructure is built to handle it.
All right. Well, Plan Commissioners, we do have motion 2135 before us. Would anyone like to make a motion concerning this final plat?
Ryan Grady, I'll motion to approve this final plat.
Mr. Grady has moved approval of motion 2135. Is there a second?
Mr. Coots will second.
And Mr. Coots is seconding. Any further discussion? In that case, I'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mr. Schumacher?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mrs. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Grady?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passed by 0.
All right. The next item is 14, recommendation for future agendas. Is there anything under future agendas that that anyone wants to mention this evening?
Mr. Grady again. I'm sorry. Is that Mr. Holman?
No, go ahead.
I just was going to make a recommendation if we have another month where we have nothing to approve or nothing to vote on, if we could talk to the lake and trying to make sure that we're looking at improving our procedures and looking at some other best practices. I know we've done this before and we've worked with some of these various entities in the past to create what we have, but I think we can improve upon it. I think so. If we could have a conversation down the road.
Wow, that's ironic. What I was going to bring up is after one of the previous meetings, I spoke briefly with John Thody, a principal of RLIA, and I got an informal meeting to come to one of their meetings and discuss the very same thing, possibly increase our communication level and I guess potentially make some of this stuff make more sense when we communicate. Slightly less confrontational, more constructive situation. So exactly on your point.
Thanks.
And he was
go ahead.
really receptive to that.
I love that. I think to your point, I mean, every single meeting that we've had, it just seems like people really want to do right. It's just not that we haven't, for whatever reason, I think we just haven't communicated it. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but we just haven't. And so thanks, Mr. Holm. I appreciate you.
Well, the other thing in response to that is, we spent over 5 years in the Title 10 rezoning process, and we over and over seeked input from not only the community, but, from RLIA and other influential people. And we thought we really had something here. And then to have, like what you just said, month after month of, I don't know, relatively traumatic public hearings and, putting people on the spot, which is the correct forum for that. But I just wanted to reach out the olive branch and make that communication. And I'll report back my findings. And like you say, maybe we can build on that as a team.
Great.
I think those are good ideas. Is there anything else that anyone wants to mention about future agendas? All right. In that case, we go to item number 15, adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second. Would anyone like to second that we adjourn?
Yeah, Mr. Coops will second.
Mr. Schumacher seconded. Mr. Holman moved and Mr. Schumacher seconded to adjourn. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? All right. Then we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.